Okie dokie. So, this is my first attempt at like a talk show type of thing going on, a role playing game based talk show. So, let's kind of take a look at what we got here. So, I decided on 3 topics for today. So, my basic RPG history. I don't want to get tuned up because I have some intention to do some video type stuff on that. The TTRPG Safety Toolkit, the tabletop role playing game safety toolkit. In fact, it's coming up the ENnies, as it's up for the best free utility for role playing game. And then my love of rules light RPGs. Good times with all. So let's take a look here. Alright, so basic RPG history. I've been playing role-playing games since I was just about 11 years old. And I'm old now. But, I started off with your basic Dungeons & Dragons. At the time, it was very much it was a time of the Satanic Panic, which you may or may not have heard of. So, back in pretty much the entirety of the 80s, there was this thing where all these different organizations were suspected of Satanism and demonic worship, and there was even this really messed up situation where this play school or like a daycare center was targeted. Basically, the authorities decided they were Satan worshippers. They interviewed children, and this was a big thing where they basically trained the kids what to say, and they were they pushed them into basically saying that they were all the children there were sexually and emotionally abused, constantly, and as and it was there were satanic rituals performed, there was blood sacrificed, animals were killed, that kind of thing. It was crazy, and it literally was crazy because it didn't happen. There was just this idea out there in adult land at that time that Satanists were everywhere and they were trying to harm your children and stuff. And so role-playing games were kind of, I won't say not popular, because obviously Dungeons & Dragons existed then and is thriving today in the form of, Wizards of the Coast and whatnot. But it was just like, I remember there was a sheet that went around to everyone's family. It was like, does your child play Dungeons and Dragons? Do they read occult materials? Do they have a copy of the Necronomicon? Do they run around, sewer tunnels and stuff? Stuff like that. And because of all that crap, I remember my own dad, specifically once asked me, in relationship to my role-playing game thing that I was getting into, he's like, do you understand that, Bugs Bunny is not real, right? It's like, basically asking if I, understood the difference between reality and fantasy, which, of course, I did. I was this kid with a abundance of creativity and needed an outlet for it, and it was this role-playing games was a cool way to do it. So yeah, it was around that time, and you kind of leapfrog from one game to another. Next thing you know, you're at Star Frontiers. You're trying to score some advanced Dungeons and Dragons at some point. And I played all through, my young adult life, my adult life, and I was in the Navy for 5 years, and I played it all through there. It's not hard in the military to find people who are into role-playing games. Contrary, probably, for one thing, people in the military lead generally boring lives. I think I'd be putting it down that, anyone who's in the military would easily say that 99% of their time was boring as all hell, and that there was that 1% of extreme excitement, no matter what they do. And that was the case for many of us. And I was in the Navy, but I was never on a ship. Some of my friends were. The job I was in didn't require that kind of thing on a regular basis. So anyway, I played all through my military time, and I got a whole new circle of friends that enjoyed this kind of thing. Many of which I keep in touch with till today. Um, they're great, they're friends. They're awesome companions and role players, and it's great to spend time with them. No matter what we're doing. So yeah, so after the military, I kind of I there was this guy I met while I was in the military, and when I moved back home, I kept in touch, and he was writing a role playing game, and I kept in touch with him. Again, I kind of want to go be a little vague on this because this is for another show, the more the bigger story here. Um, but yeah, definitely. Let's see here. Hold on one second. Darn it. All right. Hold on. Sorry about this one second. I thought I had taken care of everything here. That's better. Okay. All right, now we're back. Cool. All right, sorry. As I set up this OBS profile, I didn't put in the various sound filters I normally do. So sorry about that. I had to suffer through that for the first minutes. Anyway, so back to the thing. So I kept in touch with this guy. He was writing a role playing game and actually did. We went to several Gen Cons. I worked for him. I did a lot, mostly playtesting, and I did some content creation for his game. And then I did a bulk of like the short story writing, like in the beginnings of the books, or he had like a newsletter out for a while, and there were such things as actual like newsletters you got in the mail type of thing. And then just through till today, I've been wanting to game for some time, and it's sometimes just hard to get a local group together. So I found the wonders of Roll20 and and etc. Various Reddits, Discords, etc. And that's kind of brought me here. So yeah, I'm really pleased with where this is. I've met some really awesome people just by putting the news out there. Hey, I'm looking for players. I met some cool people. I've reconnected with some people from my past, and who are awesome. And I'm glad that they're back in my life. And role playing games have brought them here, and that's awesome. So yeah, let's see here. Other than that, yeah. So like I said, there are other shows when I want to get more in depth in some of this stuff. So I'm going to kind of leave it generally vague. Again, this is made to be a basic RPG history, as you can see there. There you go. So yeah, and as you can see, I'm still developing like what I want the stream to look like, etc. Um, and kind of figure out what we're doing, and how we're going to do it, and if there's even an interest in this kind of thing. It's kind of refreshing to be, I do. I don't generally do long streams because my streams are actual plays, so like 3 hours a day, and it's kind of nice to even just pare back and just do like the 1 hour. I'd be happy to do, if this just isn't working out, if it's not, there's no real interest in like a talk show type format, then I'd probably go back to doing like video games and stuff on Sundays, that kind of thing. But it's nice to experiment around. It's nice to try things out and see what works. So thank you for being here. So let's see. So let's move on to topic two. And again, it's interesting. Will I be able to make an hour out of this? I don't know. And we can always background. So the tabletop role-playing game safety toolkit. So a little history on this. When I playing for the bulk of my life, role-playing games, you got together with friends or even strangers, and you got together at a table and you played. The game master is in charge of things. Um, the game master created the world that you lived in, and you lived in their world. So what they wanted to show you is what you saw, and that's the way it went. And I've always played with, I can't, again, I haven't always played with just friends, but I played with mostly friends. And in those games, it's like you know who you're working with. You know them very well. These are some of my best friends at the times, when I was playing with them. Um, so you kind of knew what content they were cool with and what content in terms of, gaming was too far, that kind of thing. And you knew when to push it, when to not push it. And not so much with strangers though, and but again, you kind of again there was I think it was very prevalent, like, hey, you're in the game master's world, whatever they're showing you is what you get. And that's the way it went. So that's was all right, I suppose, for the time. It worked out for me in terms of I never felt like I traumatized any of my players or anything like that. um, but I started playing Powered by the Apocalypse games. It's a game set made by Lumley. Can't remember his first name off the top of my head, but basically it started with Apocalypse World, and what it was a very cool game, the likes of which I'll be talking in the last segment. My rules like RPGs, but basically included in there. I'm not sure if it was included specifically in Apocalypse World, but it was in like Urban Shadows and Masks and a couple other games that I played of that rule set. So the idea here is that I came upon these things that were called like lines, veils, and the X card, and I kind of saw them, and I thought it was just like my initial reaction was I'll do it because it's here and they say it's a great idea. So like I'm like whatever, I've never needed lines, veils, and X cards. So let's define what they are first. So lines are limits on content. Like this will not happen in this game. The the player cannot do it. The GM cannot do it. It cannot happen by accident. It can happen under any circumstances. For me, my like, and I kind of getting out of order here, but for example, an example of my own lines in role playing is any kind of sexual assault. I will not, under any circumstances, role play a rape or any kind of sexual assault. It's just not going to happen. It makes me sick, the idea of even acting that out. Um, that in my mind, it has no place in role playing games. Others may have different opinions, but whatever. That they can have those. I have mine. So that's my line. So line is a thing that just doesn't happen. Whatever happens in the role playing session, this will not be one of those things. So you have a veil, and veils are like we can, the thing starts out and then it fades to black. So for me, again, as by way of example, my own is actual sex of whatever kind, intimacy. Like, yeah, sex, consensual sex between adults is fine, but I don't really want to role play that out. It's enough to say that it happened and then fade to black. Um, so that kind of thing. Uh, there, so and again, everyone's a little different. So that's what a veil is. The X card is like it's kind of like the stopgap. Um, the X card is basically a player or the GM feels uncomfortable with the situation, they want it stopped. It's gone over their line that they didn't even know they had. So it's like, put up the X, hit an X in chat, say X card, do something. Um, and so that's basically what that is. It's a means to, like if roleplay has gone too far where it's suddenly become that whatever is happening has suddenly become a line for you, you should have the right to say, hey, this is really messed up. I don't like this. This is not cool. Let's stop this. And the X card, when anyone puts the X card, no one asks why. You don't have to give a justification as to what's going on or why you put up the X card. It just gameplay stops. Whatever happened or was about to happen is retconned. It's it hits the rewind button. It's written out of what just happened out of reality, and you go about your game again. So yeah, those are the basics. And those are I believe the ones that are introduced in like Urban Shadows and that. So when I first saw them again, I kind of paid them lip service. It's like, okay, they're here, and that's great. But I really had never had a need for it. But I'll still bring it up. I'll still say, hey, or what's your line? What's your bails? What's here's how you do with the X card. So again, I wasn't very enthusiastic about it. I thought it was a little too over the top touchy feely for me. Um, but then I had a session with, and actually very recently, one of our Tales from the Loop sessions, and one of the players basically, we were kind of, getting done for the night, and he kind of brought up how he was happy about the whole lines and veils thing. He had, without getting into, I mean, he put it out there, so I could bring it up for one, but I don't feel comfortable. But basically, he had a bad experience, and he was because he was thankful for the lines and veils because that gave him something to kind of where he had power as a player to draw the line and say when he was up, when something was going to really mess with him. And that because that I brought these up, he trusted me that much more to not put him or his character in situations where he would have to face some trauma. It's like that really hit home. Like any other hobby, like any game, any hobby that you have where other people are involved and you're all there to have a good time. Whether it be like sports, like um boxing or whatever. It's like you're there to kind of do a thing, and there's gonna again, using boxing as an analogy. It's like you're there to do things to a certain degree, but you don't want to don't want to walk away from a sparring session where someone is hospitalized. That's now this isn't a sport of challenge where you're kind of pitting your skill against someone else and you're both good competitors, and you walk away and you go home and you do whatever you're going to do. That's gone too far. You've if you hospitalize someone while you're in boxing, you've messed it up. um there's no hobby where that you enjoy, even competitively, where you want the anyone involved to be traumatized or hurt or walk away literally in tears. That's not cool. And it just occurred to me, like, wow, this is important to keep that in mind. um Also, and I don't want to, I'm not big into drama or confrontation, but there's a GM I followed, Game Master I followed for quite some time, and they had an incident where they stepped over a line as the game master, and it hurt a character, or hurt a player rather. Player was made to be upset. They walked away hurt from the session. They walked away uncomfortable, and it wasn't cool. And later on, the GM kind of said, "Well, we didn't put tools in place to really, protect against this thing." And you know, I don't ever want to be that guy. I again, as a game master, and which is where I normally end up falling in as my role in role playing games. Um, I my goal is to everyone at my table, A, has a good time. B, takes away something that was interesting or memorable from the session. C, everybody participates, everybody gets some spotlight time. And in addition, I kind of want everyone to feel, no, nobody in role play games, nobody likes it when you just kind of, waltz through everything. Everything's easy, and I want there to be some suspense. I want there to be a little fright here and there, in terms of, oh my God, are we gonna do this? I don't know. just like you go to a movie, I suppose movie is another good analogy. It's like, you go to a horror movie with the price of admission is basically you're okay. You're saying your lines are up to including whatever, is in a Friday the 13th movie, that kind of thing. Um, so you're setting expectations for this, but so if you go to like a horror movie, you should be jump scared, you should be on the edge of your seat and be a little terrified for the various characters, and the same thing for like role-playing game in terms of you know things shouldn't be easy. You should be on the edge of your seat. I want to give you that sense of suspense. um it's really important, you know but at the same time, I don't want to traumatize you. I don't want you to literally, a death happens, someone gets killed in the course of a role-playing game, and it this is just random because this has never been a situation, but like the same thing happened to someone's relative or something, and that really messed with them. I would love for them to have a tool to say, whoa, 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 this is X card. Let's not do this. Um, so like the thing that's kind of cool about the X card is that it not everybody knows all of their lines or veils. And like some you could be cool with this or that happening in a game, and suddenly you get to it and you're like, oh wow, no, 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 I cannot do this. So the X card is kind of like the it is a safety tool. So I kind of wanted to, so the TTRPG Safety Toolkit is a thing that's been published, and is it's a free thing. You can get it. Google it. You can find it. It's basically in someone's uh, Google Documents type thing. So I'm actually going to bring it up here. Let's see here. Yeah, here we are. So first of all, so it's free. You can go to it online. You can find it, no problem. Um, and basically, there's a little thing you have to read. So to credit, basically you can use it with acknowledgement. So to credit safety TTRPG Safety Toolkit, please include the following text. I'll just read it. The TTRPG Safety Toolkit is a resource created by Kiana Shaw and Lauren Bryant Monk. The TTRPG Safety Toolkit is a compilation of safety tools that have been designed by members of the tabletop role-playing games community, used by players and GMs at the table. You can find it at BIT, blah, 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 and it has the address down here. So, very cool. And basically, I feel safe using it here because it basically says that you can do that. So the RPG Safety Toolkit and the cards may be printed, redistributed, or otherwise shared with attribution. I've already attributed. And there, I'm not altering it or anything like that. So very cool. And interestingly, let's see, where is it? Oh, how we're revoking the version of the Olivia Hill rule where you cannot include the TTRPG Safety Toolkit guide or the cards in your work if you are a fascist. So I get that. That's cool by me. I'm not a fascist, and if I put something out for publish something for someone's enjoyment, I wouldn't want fascists to enjoy it. Fascists don't deserve to enjoy things. So there you go. There's that. So let's bring it over here. So I'm gonna actually go to the RPG toolkit itself. So really cool stuff. And by the way, this is on the Ennies. I never know which one it is. It's a role playing game, like Academy Awards annually. And I already voted for it, so it's pretty cool. So and it's kind of cool. It's again, this is really neat if you're a beginning game master or even an experienced one. You can kind of just open this up, and it gives you an idea of how to put these tools in place so that you don't have to have the experience like the group with that one game master. Um, and it's a conglomeration of stuff. I mean, I've done myself, just by default. It's a conglomeration of things that others have put out there before. I mean, the X card and etc. and lines veils existed before this TTRPG Safety Toolkit, but they just put it in one place and put it into kind of concise grouping here, basically, so you can go step by step and use it. So we have lines and veils here. It talked about session 0. This is something I've always done. So in session 0, it's a great way to begin communication. You set expectations and that kind of thing. So my daughter skulking behind me. Yes, just getting her stuff. But yes. So yeah, session 0. This is where you set expectations, like what's going to happen, what you should expect, that kind of thing. For example, I'm running Tales from the Loop campaign right now, which involves, it's kids, kids ages like I think 9 to 15. So the content of that game is greatly different from when I ran Urban Shadows, for example, which is a game about like urban monsters and that kind of thing. So it's good to set expectations, and we did talk about lines and veils and that kind of thing. And if you actually come to my channel, you have to click the thing that says the streamer says this is mature programming. Only come in if you're okay with that. And that's kind of what I give, the same spiel I give in my players. It's like, hey, this is mature thing. Even in the Tales from the Loop, there's some profanity. But that kind of thing. So, and one of my lines specifically in the Tales from the Loop campaign is kids don't die. I won't. There's no player, no player character, no NPC, no kids die. So that's kind of that kind of thing. So, and again, these can change based on what game you're playing. It's important to kind of talk it out with your players too. Let's see here, and it basically it talks about a bunch of different things where making it easy for people, and not judgmental for people to use these tools, that kind of thing, which I think is cool. So let's talk about the X card again. So the X card again is like the stopgap. X card can be used at any point. No questions asked. Whatever was happening gets skipped or rewound or changed or whatever. So, and then we get to like the N and the O. I don't know how I feel about them. So you have, let's see here, the N card. So the N card is used when people feel like they're heading towards an X card. Like, oh, something's going on. And I don't know how I feel about this. Like on one hand, it's like, well, okay, so we've already established, lines and veils, and you have at some point you have to trust your game master that the game master is going to follow that they're going to abide by that, and they know that they keep that in mind. So this end card to me, on one hand, seems like it's interrupting gameplay, like like for example, like my line of no kids die in this campaign. So if like I'm saying, okay, and the gets pushed out in traffic, and someone puts up an end card, it's like, well, yeah, I know that we're heading towards what looks to you to be like, it looks to be like I'm about to cross a line, but at some point you have to trust that I'm not. This is I'm illustrating. This kid's being pushed on track to illustrate that they have this special loop technology bubble on them, and it's going to destroy the car, and they're going to be just fine. But so it's to me it seems on one hand like a momentum breaker, and on the other hand, GMs aren't infallible. We forget, or what a line is. We forget when to draw the line, when to stop. And that's kind of like, hey, just so you know, just not sure if you remembered that we put this in place, but here's an end card, type of thing. So again, on one hand, I think it potentially breaks the experience to a degree, and on the other side, I think it is just another like safety card for the player so that they don't feel like they're about to be traumatized. So I can see using it. I probably will, in the future. Up till now, I've used up to the X card. I have like Lines Veils X card. I've not used, put the N card in play. But I can see doing that. I can. especially playing with people that I'm not familiar with or aren't familiar with me and my style as a game master. So then we have the O card. And at first glance, I wasn't sure what this was. Like, it almost looks like you're giving someone permission to cross a line, but that goes against literally everything that this thing stands for. So my impression here is, um, if something gets intense, like, we just went through this big firefight, someone's bleeding, you just lost the group just lost like this longtime friend of ours in this firefight. It's really intense. Things are heart pounding right now. We've successfully reached that level where it's just that extra level of adrenaline, even in role playing game, as silly as that sounds. So like an O card, I can see that. Like, hey, just everybody give me an O. Tell me you're okay. O, O. Tell me you're okay. Everything's cool, or you're not freaked out. If you are freaked out, let's take a second and we'll play a quick scene where, things de-escalate a bit before we continue on, that kind of thing. So we have some other things here. It's definitely worth looking over, but the ones I wanted to talk about specifically were the cards and lines and veils. I really do think they're important, and I can tell you, I going back and forth on the N and the O, but I can definitely see. I mean, lines and veils and the X card at the very least will always be part of my games going forward. You may not see them as like a viewer on the stream, but rest assured that these things were covered by me and my players before the game. We generally do this kind of thing in Discord. I bring it up, hey, let's talk about lines, veils, etc. So there's that. So I really like this. If you happen to be voted at the NAs, ENIs, whatever, think of casting a vote for the TTRPG Safety Toolkit. It's really cool, really worthwhile, and it's just nice that it's so nice. It's all there and concise. It has everything you could need to kind of keep a fun, safe experience for your players and to assure them that you're putting tools in place that keep it that way. Interestingly, it kind of like has like an after game thing. Like this is really, I'm not quite sure why this kind of thing was included here, but it's like stars and wishes. Some people and some people do like what's called roses and thorns, where you're like, me as a game master, I'm asking you as a player, give me one rose, something that was really awesome during the game, and give me a thorn, something that I or somebody else could improve on. A constructive criticism, basically. So some people do that. I haven't done that, like, at least on stream in quite some time. Stars and wishes. This is interesting. So in the game, go around and get everyone to state a star and a wish. A star is a thing participants really enjoyed, and a wish is, again, kind of, this is more of a tool for help game masters better learn their players' interests. This is like, wishes, uh, things participants like to see in future sessions. And a lot of games have this built in. Like, I keep coming back to Urban Shadows, and I will again later. Um, but like, Urban Shadows has what's called an intro move. So at the beginning of a session, everybody brings up a uh, rumor or something that involves them and a specific faction in the game. And then they roll some dice, and you see how prepared or unprepared they are for that to be in play. So this is kind of their way of to put things into play that they're interested in. Like, oh, I really want to be like, see more demons and demon hunting. So for my intro move, I will say something about like, demon hunters or demons are starting to frolic in the streets or be out, more obvious and that kind of thing. So again, that's kind of I like that they included it. I don't know why it's in the safety toolkit per se. This is not really a safety issue. It's a um, uh, game quality type of issue kind of thing. So I'm not quite sure what's here, but again, it's a useful kit. I would love for anyone who is going to be running a game in the near future for like the first time, maybe, to definitely read through this whole thing. Um, it's definitely worthwhile. There's a lot here that is useful. Again, even like this stuff, the stars and wishes, or you know, highlight reel type stuff. It's very cool. Highly recommend it. So if you're going to be a game master, check it out. If you're a player, recommend it to your game master. It's very cool stuff. So I'm impressed with it. Um, yeah. So let's see. So that takes us to the TTRPG toolkit. Again, if you happen to be, voting in the Ennies or anything, check out I think it's in like the free supplement, best free supplement grouping. So think of voting for them if that does it for you. Not sure what else. I can't remember offhand off the top of my head what else is in that category, but this is definitely worthwhile. So let's see. So let's go to my love of rules light RPGs. So as an online game master, and I do tend to game lately with people that I don't know in my real life. Like, for example, again, let's use my Tales from the Loop campaign. Right now, I'm gaming with two people that I've met in real life. One person that is a friend of my friends, but I've never actually met him in real life. I've met him online in like a game, Guild Wars 2 we play. And the last is someone that I kind of when I need players online, I put out questionnaires, and he was one of those people that filled it out, and he sounded really great, so I brought him in, and it was awesome. He is awesome. That's Robert. I'm not sure if you guys, whoever watching this, has seen my Tales from Loop stream, but Robert is freaking awesome. Every now and then you have to really just, take a risk and bring some new blood in, and Robert was awesome. Anyway, so the point here is though that rules light RPGs. The cool thing about them is they're rules light. It's easier to learn. Most of the people I game with these days are, adults. In fact, everybody I game with is adults. Um, they have lives. They have, finite amounts of money. They, and a lot of these people, this is their first time playing the game that they're playing with me. So, and I generally like, hey, get the game, buy the book, um, the people who developed this or wrote this, put a lot of effort into it. I prefer that you get the game at some point, and it's good for you to study offline, that way I don't have to teach it to you completely. Um, so yeah, that gets easier when it's rules light. Like for example, and I'll bring up Powered by the Apocalypse games a lot in this category. So my two favorites are, well, my very favorite Powered by the Apocalypse game right now is Urban Shadows, followed by Masks. And the cool thing about them is, as a game master, again, it's rules light for me too. I don't have to learn a whole lot. Once you get the basics as a game master, you can pretty much throw the book away. You don't need it anymore. For specifically those two games, for the player, basically, if they have their player sheet where they basically write down their stuff, um, and they have a basic moves sheet and another moves sheet, that's it. That's all they need. It's literally three pieces of paper, three sides of, you know single paper. You know what I'm saying? But and that's it. Everything they need to know is right there. And me as game master, I need to learn a little more to kind of more smoothly implement things and kind of guide them along. But generally speaking, it's like that's all they have to learn. And it's one of the reasons I do actual plays is to teach people how to play role play games. When I'm going to do a new role playing game, the first thing I do is look for actual plays. Nerds and Stuff is pretty awesome if you haven't seen them. Um, and I just kind of see it in motion. It's one thing to kind of read it on paper. It's another thing to see it happening. So right, with the games like Urban Shadows, Masks, um, I can put those sheets, the same sheets that the players are using, again, all of like two sheets plus their character sheet, up on the screen for viewers, like yourselves, and we can all learn it together. I want my actual plays to be learning tools for people new to the game in question. And those are it's just so cool to be able to, hey, literally two sheets plus the character sheet is all you need, and I can put those up. they're freely shareable and that kind of thing, and we all get to learn together. Um, so again, a lot of my players are adults. They have not a lot of money. We're like, I know Pathfinder is hugely popular, as is various versions of Dungeons and Dragons. And those, if you're gonna like really totally commit to playing them, you need a lot of books, a lot of books. And those don't come cheap. And also like a lot of White Wolf stuff tends to have like if you really want to commit and get into this game in question, you need at least two, three, four books, and there's always something new coming out. Um, with like Power by the Apocalypse stuff, there's I think each game. Let's see. So Masks, I think, has two other books you can get, or two or three, but they're really not necessary to committing to the game. For Urban Shadows, there's like another book that's really for game masters. I think it has a couple extra, as several extra like uh, playbooks, which are basically like classes, character types, that kind of thing. So for these rules, go right home and game master it, or MC it as that system likes to call it. They probably couldn't MC it. But with another 30 minutes or an hour of study, they could. They understood. They understand the basics. They understand what's going on. And one of the other rules light things that tends to be true about them, especially the Power by the Apocalypse type games, is that they don't come with a pre-made world or reality. Like I'll pick on White Wolf. So White Wolf is huge on like this is our supplements, our every game is based on this history of in this world. This happened, this happened, this happened, and that's why these politics are this way, and this is happening, and this is happening, and this is how the world works. Period. And it's really hard to like you know enjoy all. I mean, part of the coolness of playing a White Wolf game is getting into that world that they've created. Conversely, if you want to just kind of house rule everything out, you're taking away a whole lot of the cool stuff that makes White Wolf games. With games rules light, you tend to basically the players help create the world. Your players are you. Specifically, well, again, I'll use Urban Shadows again. My favorite. Um, you basically as a community, you and the players, you guys create the world around you. There are no rules like for what's a vampire weak to, that kind of thing. Um, there's none of that. You kind of have a basic type of idea what's going on, but otherwise, you know, you as a group decide what's going on in the world, what the politics of the world is. In fact, the Urban Shadows specifically has tools to build that world around you. Again, that intro move, etc., etc. So you're kind of all building things up yourselves, and you get to make that your own, and that's really cool. To have the tools built into the game to have the players, have the GM together make this world. And what that does is on the game master side, it's a whole heck of a lot easier to prepare for a game. In a game, like let's see, let's pick on Dungeons and Dragons. You pretty much prepare for a game if you aren't like going off of a module or adventure that you bought. There's a lot of stuff that goes into creating that. You have to make maps, you have to make the NPCs, and the NPCs all have to have stats, and etc. etc. Rules light games tend to have less of that. I'll use. I haven't actually played it yet. It's on my list. It's Monster of the Week. Really cool looking game. Basically it's your Monster Hunters, a la Supernatural, that kind of thing. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So game prep is more involved than Urban Shadows, where you basically show up. With Urban Shadows, the only game prep is you really have to do as a game master between sessions is figure out like, okay, so this is happening in the game. What's happening behind the scenes? Make logical moves for various factions or NPCs, and that doesn't take long. I used to do a game prep show, and I couldn't fit more than 20 minutes into it for like two games. Like I had a mask and Urban Shadows running at the same time, and I couldn't squeeze out more than 20 minutes of a show to show everybody my game prep because there just was so little of it. With like Monster of the Week, there's a little more, but it's so cool the way they set things up. It's like you basically make characters and non-player characters fall into various groups. Like, is this person a helper? Is this person a victim? And there's no stats really. They don't need stats. They just have to have like um, tendencies, if you will. Like, okay, so this person is a victim, and they are terrified. They will always run from a monster. So when you bring that NPC into a session and suddenly a monster shows up, like, oh, okay, so I know what this person is going to do. I don't want to say they're two dimensional, but they're basic because they don't need to be more than basic until they need to be. But yeah, so rules like games tend to make game prep so much easier, and that is so important. If you've ever spent hours and hours and hours, preparing a game, and in the first 2 minutes your players sidetrack all that and like go elsewhere, um that's that you've just wasted a whole lot of time, in which you could have been doing. And I think rules like games tend towards this is, instead of mapping everything out, the general rule of thumb is have a basic like basic scene set up and plan for options. So basically, you don't even you as the game master don't know where things are going, or how they're going to play out. You have an idea of it, but the best idea for these games is to leave everything open ended, and it's kind of cool for you as a game master. So yeah, so that's Rose Light is pretty awesome. Again, a lot of Power by the Apocalypse stuff is absolutely Rules Light. So, ironically, the actual game Apocalypse world is a bit more complex because suddenly you have like vehicle rules and some other rules and other sets of rules. So it's more than just, pardon me, it's more than just like those two pieces of paper I was telling you about with other games. Um, but yeah, it's just so cool to have that kind of thing where new players can jump in so easily and master the game and have a good time and have a handle on it, in such a short time. And as a game master, you get to treat them to that kind of thing. That's really awesome. Whereas more complex games, the games that literally have like 600 pages of rules, yeah, that's odds of them mastering the game and being able to like go home and half an hour later of reading the book GM it, not very likely. And again, we're some of our biggest things as adults is we have a limited time, limited money, and games like rules tend to cater to both those. You don't have to spend a lot of time studying or prepping, and you buy a book, maybe two. So really cool stuff. So, unless there's anything from the peanut gallery here, let me know. As Chad, I want to let you lurk if you want to lurk, but if you want to speak up, I specifically am looking for viewer interaction. If you have any questions or anything you want to add, otherwise lurk to your heart's content. But yeah, let's go over what we already covered. So my basic RPG history, I've been playing since forever. I'm old. Look at my hair; it's gray and white, and not as much left of it as there used to be. Really sad. Used to have a full head of jet black hair, but not anymore. But yeah, so I've been playing role playing games forever. It's my main hobby, and I've met a lot of really cool people through it, playing it and jamming it through the years. Um, is just a cool hobby all around. And I have I some one of these days I'm gonna take pictures of it, or bring the camera over to it. But I have bookcases full of games that I've never played and never will play. But I just love reading them. They're so cool. These worlds that have been created for them, kind of getting ideas from various rule sets, and that kind of thing. I just love reading them. I'll read them for fun. I'm never gonna play them. So yeah, I mean, it's everywhere for me. A good portion of my friends are gamers, role playing gamers. And again, that's how I met several of them. The TTRPG Safety Toolkit. It's a free thing you can get on the net. Basically, again, Google TTRPG Safety Toolkit, and you'll find it. It's free. It's basically someone popped it in their Google Docs, and it's just all kinds of tools that you can use as a game master to make sure you're not traumatizing your players. Basically, that that the gameplay sessions you have are fun, they're suspenseful, and you have a great time, but you don't cross any lines that are uncool for anybody, or would just again, you don't want anybody walking away from your table traumatized. That means you have failed, period. you know and these are the tools that you can put in place to avoid that. And that's really cool. I'm glad someone put those together in one place. I'm glad that they're up for an any I'll figure out how to pronounce that one of these days. And I hope they win, because it's really cool. And three, my love of rules light RPGs. um they just bring together all the things that I find fun and easy to use in a role-playing game these days. Oh, hey, Iron Monkey. Yeah, Iron Monkey, definitely check that out. It's really cool. And again, let me bring that up real quick. And it's a short document, like literally like 1, 2, 3, 4 pages, including all their, the sources that they've gotten stuff from. And it's just really worthwhile. Really cool. And it's out there for anyone to use, as if you're actually going to use it in a way that you're kind of showing it like I am. That they do require attribution, which is easy to do. But otherwise it's free. Oh, and you can't be a fascist if you use this, so that's important. If you're a fascist, no TTRPG Safety Toolkit for you. I'm okay with that. But yeah, so that's really cool. So and again, back to Rules Light. Um, it's just all the good things about games these days. Again, with playing with adults who are, limited on time and money, it's awesome. You can easily jump into a game and feel like you know what you're doing. In fact, Iron Monkey played in my Urban Shadows game, and I like to think he kind of learned it pretty quick, and he felt comfortable with it, even though I'm not sure if he was in all the sessions, but he was in enough, I think, where he felt comfortable with it. I don't want to speak for him though. um but yeah, there's so much out there. And it doesn't have to be hundreds of dollars investments or anything in books and stuff. It can be 1 or 2 books and you're good to go. Yeah. Yeah, and then the kind of the freedom that Iron Monkey's talking about is, like, again, kind of, you help build the world, you help document what the rules of the world are and what's going on around you. And I know nobody really mastered the intro move completely, but even that was kind of a cool tool to kind of point me as the game master towards what you as the player wants to do as a player, that kind of thing. So again, very cool stuff. Yeah. Yeah, Iron Monkey and I have known each other for some time, and he's been in several of my games. Um, yeah, the intro move. But if whoever's watching, if you go into my YouTube or whatever, you'll see the game, what he's talking about. The dreaded intro move for Urban Shadows is basically, again, I kind of brought it up before, but it's basically you have to bring up someone else tells you what faction your thing is about, but once one tells you which faction you're using, you make up a rumor or something about that faction that involves you, and then you roll dice to see how prepared you are for it. And so in doing so, you're not only telling me as the game master what you as a player want to do, but you're also you're building the world. You're creating all of the background, you're creating all of the drama, all the all the everything. So really cool. I'm as a game master, all I do is I kind of move around chess pieces that you've already created logically and go from there. But yeah, cool. So let's see here. Let's see, 756. Yeah, so we're just about out of time. And so yeah, I'm not sure how that went. I'm gonna put this on YouTube eventually, and any feedback is awesome. Again, this is my first time doing this. I'm not sure if I'm doing it right or wrong, or if my delivery is good, or what have you. But this is a learning experience for me. So, constructive criticism or even cruel criticism is okay by me. Let's see. Yeah, yeah. What Iron Monkey's talking about, what uh, the um, the big reveal from Urban Shadows was an intro move. It was like, in fact, literally, by the time we got done with Urban Shadows, literally everything that happened there was not my creation. It was literally based on intro moves. All I did with them is moved I moved game pieces around in the background logically, like, this person would do that, and given this thing, and that kind of thing. But the players themselves made up the they made up all of the story, all of it, through their intro moves, which is really cool, and include up to and including the grand finale. So neat, cool, and thank you, Dr. Arculari, for showing up again. I'm kind of trying to figure things out here, put it together, and we'll see how I go from there. Again, and my interface will probably change over time as I figure out what worked well this session, and whatnot. But I try to keep it up, and at least for several more Sundays, and see how I do. Yeah, like Armaki says, for the talking about again about Urban Shadows, the Urban Shadow sessions was my part on this was just to do that moving of the pieces around in the background. I didn't need to create literally everything. Um, that came from the minds and the wants and the imaginations of the players, which is cool. Yeah. Cool. Well, I'll end this here, but I appreciate everybody who came by, and thank you guys for chatting. It's appreciated. And again, I'm gonna try this for at least what does that say? If you're gonna eat something, try it twice before you make a choice about it. But I'll try, like, I think I'll do 3 sessions of this before I decide whether or not I want to keep this in my rotation for Sundays. Otherwise, I might just go back to video games and that kind of stuff, MMOs. But we'll see. But thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much, and bye for now.